Imagine waking up in a Nashville mansion thinking you've built the perfect life until a declined card, a pink interior Lamborghini on Instagram, and a mysterious angel caption blow it all apart. Meet Madison Hayes, a former lawyer turned stay-at-home mom who discovers her husband's affair, emptied college funds, and a beach house gifted to his influencer girlfriend. But here's the twist. Buried in a dusty binder is a 15-year-old trust clause, an infidelity trigger that turns every gift, every hidden purchase, every lie back to her. Watch a Lamborghini roll into court as Exhibit A, a judge frees millions in assets, and a nothing wife become the woman who flips a real estate empire, saves her kid's future, and lights a movement that rewrites the law. From eviction notices to FBI subpoenas, from courtroom takedowns to a foundation that rescues thousands, this is not a divorce. It's a demolition and a rebirth. If you love jaw-drop twists, justice served cold, and Phoenix-level comebacks, stay to the end. Then tap like to boost the story, drop your boldest theory in the comments, share with a friend who loves high-stakes drama, and hit subscribe so you never miss the next reveal. Madison Hayes stood in her pristine kitchen, morning sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked their Nashville estate. At 42, she had crafted what appeared to be the perfect life. The marble countertops gleamed, the coffee maker hummed its expensive tune, and somewhere upstairs, her children Tyler and Emma were getting ready for their private school day. She heard Jackson's footsteps on the stairs before she saw him. Even after 17 years of marriage, her husband still cut an impressive figure. At 45, Jackson Hayes commanded attention wherever he went. His real estate empire, Hayes Development Corporation, had reshaped Nashville's skyline. He was the man who had everything, and Madison was the woman who stood beside him. "Morning, beautiful," Jackson said, but his lips barely grazed her cheek. His eyes were already on his phone, scrolling through emails. "The Henderson dinner is tonight," Madison reminded him. 7:30. "Can't make it. Flying to Miami for a development deal." He poured coffee into his travel mug, still not looking at her. "Take Sarah. Make my excuses." Madison's sister Sarah wouldn't mind, but that wasn't the point. This was the fourth event he had missed this month. She pushed down the familiar flutter of unease. Successful men had demanding schedules. She had known that when she had given up her law career to support his ambitions. "Mom, have you seen my lacrosse stick?" Emma called from upstairs. "Garage, honey," Madison replied automatically. This was her world now. Scheduling, organizing, supporting. She had traded her law degree for a different kind of management. Jackson's phone buzzed. His face lit up in a way it hadn't for Madison in months. "I need to take this," he said, already heading for his office. Madison watched him go, noting the spring in his step. A new development deal always energized him. She turned back to preparing lunch for the kids, pushing aside the strange sensation that something had shifted in their carefully ordered world. Later that morning, after dropping the children at school, Madison stopped by the bank. She needed to transfer funds for Emma's summer camp deposit. The teller, someone new, frowned at her screen. "Mrs. Hayes, this account shows insufficient funds." "That's impossible. Try the savings." More frowning. "That account was closed last week." Madison's stomach tightened. "There must be a mistake. My husband handles our main accounts. Let me call him." Jackson's phone went straight to voicemail. She tried his office. "Hayes Development," his assistant answered. "Rita, it's Madison. I need to speak with Jackson." "He's in a meeting, Mrs. Hayes. Can I take a message?" Madison ended the call. There would be an explanation. There always was. Jackson managed complex financial portfolios. Money moved between accounts for tax purposes, investments, developments. She had signed papers without reading them for years, trusting his expertise. Back home, she decided to look for the bank statements in Jackson's home office. He preferred handling finances himself, insisted it was easier that way. The door was usually locked, but the cleaning service had left it open. His desk was immaculate, like everything Jackson touched. She opened the drawers carefully, feeling like an intruder in her own home. In the bottom drawer, beneath some contracts, she found a credit card statement she didn't recognize. Tiffany and Company, $8,000. Last month. Madison hadn't received any jewelry from Tiffany. Her birthday wasn't for 3 months. She photographed the statement with shaking hands, then noticed something else. A receipt from a Miami hotel, the Ritz-Carlton Presidential Suite. But Jackson's development meetings were always day trips. A sound from the driveway made her quickly close the drawer. Through the window, she saw Jackson's BMW pulling in. He was home early, which never happened. She moved to the kitchen, trying to calm her racing heart. There would be explanations. There always were. Jackson entered whistling, actually whistling. When had she last heard him do that? "You're home early," she said, managing a smile. "Meeting canceled. Thought I'd surprise you." He pulled her close, but the gesture felt rehearsed. "Actually, I have good news. The Miami deal is bigger than expected. I'll need to spend more time there, maybe get a small place, save on hotels." "How much more time?" "Every other week, maybe. You know how these projects go." His phone buzzed. That smile again. The one that wasn't for her. "I should take this." As he walked away, Madison noticed something, a faint scent clinging to his suit. Perfume, but not hers. Something younger, sweeter, vulgar. That night, after Jackson left for Miami, after the kids were asleep, Madison sat in her quiet kitchen with her laptop. She had never checked Jackson's social media. Trust had been the foundation of their marriage. But foundations could crack. She typed his name into Instagram, scrolling through tagged photos from his company events. Then she tried searching Miami, Hayes Development, anything that might explain the perfume, the jewelry, the hotel suite. And then she saw it. The photo had been posted 3 hours ago by someone called Brittany Fitlife. A red Lamborghini Huracan, brand new, gleaming under Miami sunset. A young woman, maybe 28, posing against it in a designer dress. Blonde, toned, everything Madison had been 15 years ago. The caption made Madison's blood turn cold. "Dreams do come true. Thank you to my mysterious angel. You know who you are. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag mystery men. Hashtag Lamborghini life." Madison zoomed in on the reflection in the car's flawless paint. A man's silhouette taking the photo. The build was right. The stance was right. And on his wrist, catching the light, was the Rolex she had given Jackson for their 10th anniversary. She closed the laptop, her hands surprisingly steady. The perfect life she had built, piece by careful piece, wasn't cracking. It had already shattered. She just hadn't heard the sound until now. Madison didn't sleep that night. She sat in Jackson's office with a cup of coffee that went cold, methodically going through everything she could find. Credit card statements, bank records, phone bills he had forgotten to shred. Each discovery was another twist of the knife. The Tiffany purchase had a delivery address. A luxury apartment in Miami, one she had never heard of. The phone bill showed hundreds of texts to a number not saved in their family plan. The pattern went back 6 months, maybe longer. By dawn, she had assembled a timeline. Business trips that aligned with Brittany's Instagram posts from exclusive restaurants. Charges for 2 at Miami's finest establishments when Jackson was supposedly dining with clients. A paper trail of betrayal so obvious, she wondered how she had missed it. Tyler found her there at 6:30. "Mom, why are you in Dad's office?" "Just helping with some paperwork, sweetheart. Go get ready for school." She managed the morning routine on autopilot. Breakfast, backpacks, the drive to school. Emma chattered about her upcoming dance recital. Tyler needed money for a field trip. Normal morning chaos that felt surreal against the earthquake in her chest. Back home, she called Sarah. "Can you come over? I need you." Sarah arrived within an hour, took one look at Madison's face, and pulled her into a hug. Madison didn't cry. She couldn't. She just stood there, rigid with the effort of holding herself together. "Tell me," Sarah said. Madison showed her everything. The statements, the photos, the timeline. Sarah was a forensic accountant, trained to see patterns others missed. Her face darkened with each revelation. "That car," Sarah said slowly, studying Brittany's Instagram. "Madison, that's a $400,000 vehicle. Where did that money come from?" "I don't know. Jackson handles our investments." "You need a lawyer today." "I need to talk to him first." "Madison, no, you don't confront someone who's been stealing from you. And that's what this is. These purchases, they're from your joint assets. You have a right to know where your money went." But Madison wasn't ready for lawyers, not yet. She needed to look Jackson in the eye. needed to hear him try to explain. Maybe there was still something salvageable. For the kids, if nothing else. She drove to his office that afternoon. Rita looked uncomfortable when she saw her. "He's in a meeting, Mrs. Hayes." "I'll wait." She sat in the lobby for an hour, watching employees avoid eye contact. They knew. Of course they knew. She was probably the last to find out. The cliché of the oblivious wife. When Jackson finally emerged, his face cycled through surprise, annoyance, and finally a careful neutrality. "Madison, is everything okay? We need to talk. Privately." In his office, she laid out the printed statements and the photo of the Lamborghini. He didn't deny it, didn't even try. "You went through my office," he said, as if her violation was worse than his. "Who is she, Jackson? Does it matter?" He loosened his tie, suddenly looking older. "Madison, we've been roommates for years, you know that. I pay the bills, you manage the house. It works." "It works? You gave another woman a Lamborghini. Our money, Jackson." "My money," he corrected. "I earned it. We built this company together. I gave up my career for your ambitions." He laughed, actually laughed. "You were a junior associate at a mediocre firm. I built an empire. There's a difference." The mask was off now. This was the real Jackson, the one she had glimpsed but never acknowledged. Cold, calculating, contemptuous. "I want a divorce," she heard herself say. "Fine, I've already had papers drawn up. You'll be taken care of. Standard alimony, enough to maintain a comfortable lifestyle. Be reasonable, Madison, and this can be clean." "And the kids?" "Shared custody. Though honestly, with my schedule, you'll have them most of the time. It's what you wanted anyway, isn't it? To be the perfect mother?" She stood up, dignity intact despite the earthquake inside. "I'll need time to find a lawyer." "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." He was already turning back to his computer, dismissing her. "Oh, and Madison, you might want to check your credit cards. I've had to restructure some accounts, business reasons." She didn't understand what he meant until she stopped for gas on the way home. Card declined. She tried another. Same result. The joint checking account she had used that morning was frozen. Standing at the gas pump, credit cards useless in her hand, she finally understood. This wasn't a negotiation. It was an execution. Jackson had been planning this for months, maybe years, methodically cutting her off from their shared resources while she managed carpools and dinner parties. A car pulled up behind her, honking. She had to move, had to function. She found a 20 in her purse, enough for a few gallons, enough to get home. Sarah was waiting at the house with Marcus Williams, one of Nashville's best divorce attorneys. Madison had met him once at a charity gala. He looked at her evidence with the expression of someone who had seen this story before. "He's already moved assets," Marcus said. "This is going to be a fight. I don't have money for a retainer. We'll work something out. What he's doing, the financial manipulation. Judges don't like that. But Madison, you need to prepare yourself. Men like Jackson, they don't lose gracefully." That night, she sat down with Tyler and Emma. "How did you tell your children their father was leaving? How did you explain that the life they knew was ending?" "Dad and I are having some problems," she grinned. "Are you getting divorced?" Tyler asked, 15 and too perceptive. "We're figuring things out." Emma started crying. Tyler put his arm around his sister, suddenly older than his years. "It's okay, Em. We'll be okay." Madison hoped he was right, but looking at the bills piling up, the frozen accounts, the hostile takeover of her life, she wasn't sure okay was possible anymore. 3 weeks into the divorce proceedings, Madison discovered just how thoroughly Jackson had prepared his assault. She stood in the Kroger checkout line with a cart full of groceries, Tyler and Emma beside her, when her debit card was declined. "Try it again," she said, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. The teenage cashier swiped it twice more. "Sorry, ma'am. Do you have another form of payment?" She tried the emergency credit card. Declined. The American Express. Declined. Behind her, the line grew longer. She recognized several faces from the kids' school. Mrs. Patterson from the PTA, Jennifer Walsh, whose daughter was in Emma's dance class. "Mom," Emma whispered, tugging her sleeve. "It's fine, sweetheart." But it wasn't fine. She found $40 cash in her wallet, enough for milk, bread, and a few essentials. The rest of the groceries were wheeled away by a store employee. Why couldn't we buy our food? Emma asked in the car. Just a banking error. It happens. Tyler wasn't fooled. Dad did this, didn't he? She met his eyes in the rearview mirror. Her son was growing up too fast, forced to understand adult cruelties before his time. Marcus Williams was furious when she called him from the parking lot. He can't legally freeze you out of marital assets. I'll file an emergency motion. But emergency motions took time, and Jackson had planned for that too. The next morning, she received a letter from his attorney. Jackson was generously offering to deposit $2,000 monthly into a new account for household expenses during the proceedings. $2,000. Their mortgage alone was $8,000. It's a pressure tactic, Marcus explained. He wants you desperate, willing to accept any settlement. Don't give in. Easy for him to say. He wasn't choosing between electricity and Emma's dance lessons, between Haas and Tyler's SAT prep classes. Sarah tried to help, slipping her cash, but she was a single woman living on an accountant's salary. Madison's parents were retired in Florida, living on Social Security. There was no cavalry coming. The worst part was maintaining normalcy for the children. They still attended their private school, thanks to the semester being prepaid, but Madison knew Jackson would cancel the next payment. She volunteered at school events with a smile plastered on her face while other mothers whispered behind their hands. Then came the second blow. Madison was reviewing bank statements with Sarah when they discovered the college funds. 2 accounts, one for each child, that Madison had been contributing to since they were babies. They're gone, Sarah said, her face pale. Liquidated 3 months ago. He can't do that. Those were in the kids' names. He was the custodian on the accounts. Legally, he had access. $180,000. Their children's futures vanished into Jackson's war chest. Madison found herself struggling to breathe. The kids don't know about this. They can't know. Madison, this is criminal. No, it's just cruel. There's a difference, apparently. She drove to Jackson's office again, this time without calling ahead. Rita tried to stop her, but Madison walked past her into the conference room where Jackson was meeting with potential investors. Excuse me, gentlemen. I need to speak with my husband. Jackson's face flushed. Madison, this is inappropriate. So is stealing your children's college funds. The investors exchanged uncomfortable glances. One stood up. Perhaps we should reschedule, Hayes. After they left, Jackson turned on her, fury radiating from every line of his body. You just cost me a $10 million deal. You cost our children their education. I'll pay for their college when the time comes. The money was better utilized in active investments. Well, your girlfriend's Lamborghini is an active investment? He smiled then, cold and satisfied. Brittany's assets are none of your concern. Focus on your own situation, Madison. It's precarious enough. He was right. That night, she received notice that she had 30 days to vacate the marital home. Jackson's attorney argued that since Jackson paid the mortgage and the deed was in his company's name for tax purposes, Madison had no claim to residence. Fight it, Marcus advised. You've lived there 12 years. You have rights. But fighting required money she didn't have. Marcus was already working at a reduced rate, hoping for a good settlement to cover his fees. Every motion filed cost money. Every day in court was another bill. The children took the news about moving with different reactions. Emma cried for hours. Tyler punched a hole in his bedroom wall, then immediately apologized, horrified at his own violence. It's okay, Madison told him, holding her son as he sobbed. It's okay to be angry. But it wasn't okay. None of it was okay. She was failing them, failing to protect their stability, their futures, their faith in their parents. Then Brittany decided to twist the knife. The video appeared on Instagram on a Thursday afternoon. House tour of my new Miami dream home, Brittany squealed, camera panning across marble floors and ocean views. Madison recognized the artwork on the walls, pieces she and Jackson had collected on their anniversary trips. The dining table where they'd hosted family Christmases. It was their beach house, the one Jackson had promised would always be their family retreat. He'd transferred it to his girlfriend. Madison sat in her kitchen, watching her old life become someone else's Instagram content. Brittany posed in the master bedroom, on the balcony, in the infinity pool where Emma had learned to swim. The comments poured in. Living your best life, queen. Get it, girl? Your man treats you right. Her man, Madison's husband, the father of her children. Tyler found her watching it. He took the phone from her hand, his jaw clenched. Mom, stop. Don't watch this. She's in our house, Tyler. It's not our house anymore. Nothing is. The resignation in his voice broke her heart. At 15, he was already learning that fathers could betray, that families could shatter, that everything you thought was yours could be given to a stranger who posed with it for social media likes. Sarah arrived that evening with wine and tissues, but Madison didn't cry. She was beyond tears, in some Arctic place where emotion couldn't survive. She showed Sarah the eviction notice, the empty college funds, Brittany's house tour. We're going to bury him, Sarah said fiercely. There has to be something, some leverage. But what leverage did a discarded wife have against a man who'd spent years preparing for war? Madison had signed papers without reading them, trusted without verifying, loved without protecting herself. I need to find an apartment, Madison said practically. Something cheap. The kids can share a room. Madison, no. This isn't over. But it felt over. Madison had been crushed, systematically and completely. Jackson had won before the fight even started. All that was left was surrender. She didn't know that in Jackson's arrogance, he'd made one critical error. One piece of paper, signed years ago, that would become her weapon. But that discovery was still days away. And tonight, Madison Hayes sat in a house she was being evicted from, comforting children whose futures had been stolen. While somewhere in Miami, her replacement posted sunset selfies from the life Madison had built. Rock bottom felt infinite, a darkness without borders. But even in the deepest night, dawn was already gathering its strength. The eviction deadline approached like a storm system on radar, inevitable and destructive. Madison spent her days calling apartments, each rejection another small death. Her credit, tied to Jackson's financial manipulations, was destroyed. No one would rent to her without a massive deposit she couldn't afford. What about Dad's place? Emma asked one evening, her homework spread across the kitchen table they'd soon lose. Can't we stay with him? Madison's heart cracked. Dad's very busy with work, sweetheart. The truth was uglier. Jackson had made it clear through his attorney that he'd seek full custody if Madison couldn't provide adequate housing. It was checkmate played in slow motion. Sarah found them a possibility, a 2-bedroom unit in a complex 40 minutes from the kids' school. The neighborhood was rough, the apartment small, but the landlord was Sarah's client and willing to overlook the credit issues. Madison stood in the empty unit, trying to imagine their furniture crammed into these rooms. Tyler and Emma would share the smaller bedroom. She'd sleep in the living room. The kitchen was a galley with peeling linoleum. The walls were thin enough to hear the neighbor's television. We'll make it work, she told Sarah, but her voice caught on the words. That night, she found Tyler in the garage, packing his sports equipment into boxes. I'm quitting lacrosse, he said without looking up. Tyler, no, you love lacrosse. The equipment fees are due. Travel team costs $3,000. We don't have it, Mom. The matter-of-fact acceptance in his voice destroyed her. Her son was sacrificing his passion, his potential college scholarships, because his father had decided they were expendable. I'll figure something out. Tyler finally looked at her, eyes too old for his face. Stop, Mom. Just stop pretending it's going to be okay. She wanted to argue, to promise miracles, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she helped him pack. Each trophy they wrapped a reminder of what they were losing. The next morning brought another assault. Madison arrived at the school pickup line to find the principal waiting. Mrs. Hayes, could we speak privately? In her office, the principal explained that the tuition check for next semester had been stopped. I'm afraid if payment isn't received by Friday, Tyler and Emma will need to withdraw. Their father is responsible for tuition. It's in the temporary orders. I understand, but the school's policy is clear. Perhaps you could discuss this with Mr. Hayes. Madison knew exactly how that discussion would go. Jackson would offer to pay if she agreed to his settlement terms. Sign away her rights, accept his scraps, and the children could stay in school. It was extortion dressed as negotiation. She managed to hold herself together until she reached her car. Then the sobs came, violent and unstoppable. A security guard knocked on her window, concerned, and she had to wave him away, mortified. Marcus filed another emergency motion, but the hearing wasn't for 2 weeks. By then, the kids would already be withdrawn. Madison imagined telling them they'd be switching to public school mid-year, leaving their friends, their lives. Another casualty in Jackson's war. That evening, Jackson called. His voice was warm, friendly, as if they were discussing dinner plans instead of destruction. Madison, this doesn't have to be so difficult. Sign the settlement. Take the alimony. You'll have enough for a nice apartment. The kids stay in school. Everyone wins. Everyone wins? You stole their college funds. You gave our beach house to your girlfriend. Investment decisions and asset protection. Brittany has no claim to that property. It's held in a trust. Something about the way he said it, casual and dismissive, triggered a memory. A trust. They'd established several over the years, Jackson always insisting on complex structures for tax benefits. After he hung up, Madison called Sarah. I need you to look into something. All our trusts, every single one. Jackson mentioned Brittany has no claim to the beach house because it's in a trust. Madison, he's probably right. If it's in his name, just look, please. While Sarah investigated, Madison faced the immediate crisis. She had 48 hours before eviction, no money for movers, and 2 children who still didn't fully grasp how completely their lives were about to change. Then Brittany posted again. This time it was the Lamborghini, a professional photo shoot on Miami Beach. But it was the caption that made Madison's hands shake. Blessed to announce I'm launching my new fitness brand, Brittany Bod. Thanks to my angel investor for believing in my dreams. First 10,000 followers get 30% off. Hashtag Brittany, Bod and hashtag angel investor, hashtag Lamborghini life, hash blessed, angel investor. Jackson was funding her company with their money. While Madison counted dollars for groceries, he was bankrolling his mistress's vanity project. The comments were nauseating. Hundreds of women congratulating Brittany on her success, her drive, her ambition, as if posing on a car someone else's husband bought you was an achievement. Emma found Madison staring at the screen. Is that Dad's girlfriend? Madison hadn't realized Emma knew. How did you? Everyone at school knows. Amber's mom showed her the Instagram. She's really pretty. The knife twisted deeper. Her 13-year-old daughter was comparing herself to her father's mistress, finding herself lacking. Beauty isn't about appearance, Em. Dad thinks it is. Madison had no answer for that brutal truth. Marcus called with bad news. The judge assigned to our emergency motion is Harold Mitchell. He and Jackson golfed together at the country club. Can we request someone else? Not without proof of bias, which we won't get until he rules against us. So we're supposed to just accept that the system is rigged? I'm saying we need to be prepared for disappointment. Disappointment seemed inadequate for what was coming. Madison sat in her soon-to-be lost kitchen, looking at the boxes she couldn't afford to move, holding an eviction notice she couldn't fight, while her children did homework for a school they'd have to leave. Rock Bottom had sub-basements, apparently. Each time she thought she had hit the lowest point, Jackson found new depths to push her toward. The systematic destruction of her life was almost artistic in its thoroughness. Sarah arrived near midnight, waving a folder with manic energy. Madison, I found something. Remember the Hayes Family Preservation Trust? Vaguely. Jackson set it up years ago. You both set it up, you're co-trustees. And there's a clause, Article 7, Section 4. It's called an infidelity provision. Madison's exhaustion made understanding difficult. What does that mean? It means that if either trustee commits adultery, any assets transferred to the third party revert to the innocent spouse. Jackson wrote this to protect himself. If you cheated, he never imagined it would apply to him. But can we prove adultery? Sarah smiled for the first time in weeks. Brittany's Instagram is proof. Every post with that car, every photo from the beach house, every blessed hashtag. She's been documenting the evidence for us. For the first time since finding that Tiffany receipt, Madison felt something other than despair. Not quite hope, but maybe its cousin. A possibility that Jackson's cruelty hadn't considered every angle. The Lamborghini, Madison said slowly. If it was purchased with trust funds, and then it legally belongs to you, not half, all of it. They stayed up until dawn reviewing trust documents, cross-referencing purchases, building a case. The eviction deadline loomed, the children still faced school withdrawal, and Madison's credit was still destroyed. But now she had something she'd lost weeks ago. She had a weapon. Jackson thought he'd already won, that Madison would crumble and accept his terms. He'd counted on her being exactly what he'd treated her as, weak, dependent, defenseless. He'd forgotten that she'd once been a lawyer. He'd forgotten that she'd helped build his empire. Most importantly, he'd forgotten that the papers he'd had her sign over the years, dismissing her involvement as ceremonial, had actually given her power. Madison looked at the sunrise through her kitchen window, knowing it might be one of her last in this house. But for the first time in months, the light didn't mock her with false hope. This time the hope was real, and it had teeth. Sarah spread the documents across Madison's dining table like a general planning an invasion. Trust documents, bank statements, screenshots from Brittany's Instagram, receipts Sarah had obtained through connections Madison didn't ask about. The picture they painted was damning. The Lamborghini was purchased 3 months ago, Sarah explained, highlighting dates. The payment came from the Hayes Family Preservation Trust, $480,000, including taxes and customization. Customization? Pink interior, her signature color apparently. Madison studied Brittany's photos with new eyes. Every pose shot, every hashtag blessed moment was evidence. The girl had created a digital confession without realizing it. Marcus arrived to review their findings. His expression shifted from skeptical to stunned as he read through the trust documents. "This infidelity clause is ironclad," he muttered. "Jackson must have paid a fortune to have this drafted. It's bulletproof." "He was paranoid about me cheating," Madison said bitterly. "Always accused me of flirting at parties, being too friendly with his colleagues. Classic projection." "The question is," Marcus said, "does he remember this clause exists? It was written 15 years ago." Sarah pulled up more receipts. "There's more. Jewelry, designer goods, a boat slip in Miami, all purchased from trust funds, all documented on her social media. Total value? Over $2 million in gifts to Brittany in the last year alone." Madison sat down hard. $2 million. While she counted pennies, Jackson had been hemorrhaging their wealth on his mistress. "We need to move fast," Marcus said, "before he realizes what he's exposed. Madison, you need to file as emergency managing trustee immediately. If we can freeze those assets before he moves them, do it." They worked through the night, preparing filing documents. Madison signed forms until her hand cramped. With each signature, she felt power returning, drop by drop, filling the empty reservoir Jackson had drained. The hearing was scheduled for 3 days later, 1 day before the eviction deadline. Judge Catherine Ross presiding, not Harold Mitchell. "How did you manage that?" Madison asked Marcus. Mitchell recused himself. "Seems someone sent his clerk screenshots of him and Jackson at a golf tournament last month. Conflict of interest." Sarah whistled innocently, studying her nails. The morning of the hearing, Madison dressed carefully in her best suit, the one she'd worn to Jackson's company launches back when she was still invited. She looked at herself in the mirror, seeing not the defeated woman of recent weeks, but it's someone else. Someone harder. Someone who'd survived the systematic destruction of her life and found weapons in the rubble. Tyler hugged her before school. "Good luck today, Mom." "How did you know?" "Aunt Sarah told me. Dad's going to be really mad, isn't he?" "Probably." Tyler smiled, the first real smile she'd seen in months. "Good." The courthouse was packed. Word had spread through Nashville's elite circles. Jackson Hayes' divorce had become spectator sport for the country club set. Jackson sat with his legal team, 3 lawyers in $1,000 suits. He looked relaxed, confident, checking his phone with the casual arrogance of someone certain of victory. Then he saw Madison enter with Marcus and Sarah. His expression shifted, just slightly, a flicker of uncertainty. Judge Ross called the hearing to order. Marcus stood, his voice filling the courtroom. "Your Honor, we're here on an emergency motion regarding the Hayes Family Preservation Trust. My client, Madison Hayes, is co-trustee of this trust with her estranged husband. We have discovered massive malfeasance in the trust administration. Jackson's lead attorney, Richard Cromwell, stood. Your Honor, this is a transparent attempt to relitigate property division. Mrs. Hayes is simply bitter about the divorce. Let me see the evidence, Judge Ross said. Marcus presented everything. The trust documents, the infidelity clause, the purchases, and most devastatingly, Brittany's Instagram posts. This is Exhibit 47, Your Honor, Marcus said, projecting a photo onto the courtroom screen. Ms. Sterling posing with the Lamborghini. Caption, "Thank you to my mysterious angel." Posted the same day $480,000 was withdrawn from the trust. He clicked through more photos. Brittany in diamond earrings, Brittany on a yacht, Brittany in the beach house. Each image corresponded with a trust withdrawal. The trust's infidelity clause, Article 7, Section 4, explicitly states that any assets transferred to a party with whom a trustee commits adultery automatically revert to the innocent spouse. Not half, all. The courtroom buzzed. Jackson's face had gone from tan to ashen. Cromwell scrambled. Your Honor, these are unsubstantiated accusations. There's no proof of adultery. Sarah stood up from the gallery. I have sworn affidavits from 6 employees at Hayes Development confirming the relationship. Also, Ms. Sterling's apartment lease lists Mr. Hayes as guarantor. Judge Ross reviewed the documents, her expression grave. Mr. Cromwell, your client signed this trust document, correct? Yes, but... And these withdrawals from the trust correspond with gifts given to Ms. Sterling. Allegedly, she posted photos with the items. She thanked her angel investor publicly. Are you suggesting someone else gave her a Lamborghini that matches the exact purchase from the trust? Cromwell had no answer. Judge Ross turned to Madison. Mrs. Hayes, as co-trustee, you were unaware of these withdrawals? Madison stood. No, Your Honor. My husband handled all trust administration. I discovered this only after our separation, when I finally had access to the records. Mr. Hayes, the judge said coldly, you have systematically looted a marital trust to fund an extramarital affair. This is not just a breach of fiduciary duty, it's fraud. Jackson whispered urgently to his lawyers. Cromwell stood again. Your Honor, even if these allegations are true, the assets have been transferred. The car is titled to Ms. Sterling. The properties have been deeded. That's where you're wrong, Marcus said. He pulled out a new document. Under trust law, fraudulent transfers can be reversed. We're requesting immediate seizure of all assets improperly transferred from the trust. Furthermore, as Mr. Hayes has proven himself unfit as his trustee, we request Mrs. Hayes be appointed sole managing trustee. The judge nodded. I'm granting the emergency motion. All assets transferred from the Hayes Family Preservation Trust to Ms. Brittany Sterling, or any entity controlled by her, are to be immediately frozen pending final determination. Mrs. Hayes is appointed emergency managing trustee. Jackson shot to his feet. You can't do this. Mr. Hayes, sit down or I'll hold you in contempt. But Jackson's composure had finally cracked. That's my money. I earned it. She was nothing. A nobody lawyer who couldn't even make partner. Madison stood slowly, meeting his eyes across the courtroom. I was the one who structured your first deals. I was the one who worked 18-hour days while pregnant to help you launch the company. I was the one who gave up my career so you could have yours. Her voice grew stronger with each word. I was never nothing, Jackson. You just stopped seeing me. But the law sees me, the trust sees me, and now everyone sees you for exactly what you are. The gavel came down. Order! Mr. Hayes, you're in contempt. Bailiff, escort him out. As Jackson was led away, still raging, Madison felt 15 years of weight lift from her shoulders. She wasn't done, wasn't whole, wasn't healed, but she was no longer helpless. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Madison walked through them without comment, Sarah and Marcus flanking her. In the parking lot, her phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Saw the news alert. Mom, you're amazing. Then one from Emma. Is Dad in trouble? Are we going to be okay? Madison typed back, yes, sweetheart, we're going to be okay. For the first time, she actually believed it. The news cycle exploded within hours. Nashville developers Mistress must return $2 million in gifts. headlined the Tennessean. Business journals ran with Hayes Development CEO faces fraud investigation. But it was the social media storm that truly captured the public's attention. Brittany's Instagram, which had been a monument to excess, became a crime scene. Internet sleuths matched every photo to trust withdrawals. The comments section transformed from admiration to schadenfreude. Karma is a Lamborghini driving ex-wife became a viral tweet. Madison sat in Marcus's office watching Jackson's empire crack in real time. Hayes Development stock dropped 12% this morning, Marcus reported. 3 major investors have pulled out. The board called an emergency meeting. She felt no satisfaction, only a hollow recognition of justice. This wasn't revenge, it was consequence. Sarah burst in, laptop in hand. "You need to see this." Brittany had posted a tearful video. Mascara streaked, designer dress wrinkled. She sobbed into her phone. "I didn't know he was married. He told me that they were separated. The car was a gift. This isn't fair." The performance might have been convincing, if not for the comment someone had unearthed. A reply Brittany had posted 6 months ago to a friend's photo at a Nashville charity gala. "Isn't that your sugar daddy with his wife?" the friend had written. Brittany's response, "Not for much longer," winky face emoji. "She knew," Sarah said. "She always knew." The court had given Brittany 72 hours to surrender the Lamborghini. Madison's phone rang. It was the court clerk. "Mrs. Hayes, Miss Sterling has arrived with the vehicle." Madison drove to the courthouse with Sarah. In the parking lot, surrounded by news vans, sat the pink interior Lamborghini. Brittany stood beside it, surrounded by her own attorney and what looked like a film crew. "She's documenting this for her reality show pitch," Sarah muttered, turning her humiliation into content. Brittany saw Madison and strutted over, cameras following. "I hope you're happy. You've ruined my life." Madison studied the younger woman. The designer clothes, the perfect hair, the body that had never carried children. She waited for anger, for hatred. Instead, she felt only pity. "No, Brittany, Jackson ruined your life, just like he tried to ruin mine. The difference is I have legal recourse. You were just expensive entertainment." Brittany's facade cracked. "He loves me. He loves what you represent. Youth worship, escape from responsibility. When you age out or ask for too much, he'll replace you. Check the trust documents. There's a whole section about subsequent relationships. You weren't his first affair, just his most expensive." The truth hit Brittany like cold water. Her attorney pulled her away, but the damage was done. The cameras had caught everything. Madison signed the paperwork to take possession of the Lamborghini. Sarah whistled. "What are you going to do with it?" "Sell it. The proceeds go back to the trust, which I now control. Tyler and Emma's college funds will be restored first." That afternoon, Jackson's attorney requested an emergency meeting. Not Cromwell this time, but David Park, Jackson's criminal defense lawyer. "My client is prepared to negotiate," Park said carefully. Marcus laughed. "Negotiate? He's facing fraud charges, breach of fiduciary duty, and contempt. What exactly does he have to negotiate with?" "The children. Jackson will seek full custody unless Madison agrees to drop the criminal referral." Madison's blood turned to ice. "He's threatening to take my children?" "He's offering a solution. Drop the charges, accept a generous embargament, and everyone moves forward." "No," Park looked surprised. "Mrs. Hayes, consider carefully. A custody battle could be lengthy, expensive. My children watched their father destroy their mother for sport. They lost their home, their school, their stability. Tyler gave up lacrosse. Emma cries herself to sleep. You think I'll let Jackson use them as bargaining chips?" She stood, her voice steel. "Tell Jackson this. I have documentation of every asset he hid, every transaction he made, every lie he told. I have witnesses ready to testify about his affairs, his financial manipulation, his systematic abuse. If he comes after my children, I won't just take his money. I'll take his reputation, his company, and his freedom. The fraud charges are just the beginning." Park gathered his files quickly. "I'll relay your message." After he left, Marcus looked at Madison with new respect. "You've changed. No, Madison corrected. I remembered who I was before Jackson convinced me I was nothing. The custody threat evaporated within days. Jackson's board had forced him to step down as CEO pending investigation. His investors were fleeing. The empire he'd built on Madison's invisible foundation was crumbling. Tyler and Emma were back in school, tuition paid from the recovered trust funds. They'd moved to a modest but comfortable rental house, while the marital home was sorted out. It wasn't their old life, but it was theirs. One evening, Emma found Madison looking at real estate listings. Are we going to buy a mansion like Dad's? Madison pulled her daughter close. No, sweetheart. We're going to buy something better. A home that's ours. No lies, no pretense, just us. Will Dad visit? The question Madison had dreaded. Your father loves you both. Once everything is settled, you'll see him regularly. What she didn't say was that Jackson had already missed 3 scheduled visits, too busy trying to salvage his reputation to remember his children existed. Sarah arrived with Chinese takeout and wine. Guess who's trending on Twitter? She showed Madison her phone. Someone had created a meme of Brittany crying next to the Lamborghini with the caption, "When you realize sleeping with married men has consequences." That's cruel, Madison said, though she couldn't suppress a small smile. That's accountability. Speaking of which, did you see Jackson's latest filing? Madison hadn't. She'd stopped obsessing over every legal document. He's claiming temporary insanity due to midlife crisis. Sarah laughed. His lawyers are literally arguing he wasn't in his right mind when he gave away $2 million to his mistress. Will that work? Not a chance. Judge Ross isn't buying it. Marcus says she's ready to rule on the trust disbursements. You're getting everything back, Madison. Every penny he stole. Madison felt the weight of months lifting. Not just the money, but the validation. She hadn't been crazy, paranoid, or overdramatic. She'd been right. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number, but she recognized the area code. Miami. Hello? Mrs. Hayes, this is Jennifer Collins from the Miami Herald. We're running a story about your husband's business practices. We have 3 other women who claim he promised them investments that never materialized. Would you like to comment? 3 other women. Madison closed her eyes, feeling the last of her illusions about her marriage dissolve. No comment, but I'd suggest you look into the Hayes Family Preservation Trust documents. Article 9 covers pattern behavior. It might interest your other sources. She hung up, knowing she'd just lit another match under Jackson's pyre. But it wasn't revenge driving her. It was justice, not just for herself, but for all the women Jackson had used and discarded. Tyler appeared in the doorway. Mom, are you okay? She looked at her son, taller now, older in ways that broke her heart. Yes, sweetheart, I'm better than okay. Good, because Emma and I were talking. We want to change our last names to your maiden name, Vance. Madison's eyes filled. Are you sure? Dad broke our family. You're putting it back together. We want your name, not his. Madison hugged her son, feeling something she'd thought Jackson had killed forever. Hope. Not for reconciliation, not for the old life, but for something better, something real. The war wasn't over. There would be more hearings, more battles, more attempts by Jackson to hurt her. But Madison Vance, she'd already started thinking of herself that way, was no longer the victim in this story. She was the victor. The Lamborghini sold at auction for $520,000, $40,000 more than Jackson had paid. The buyer was a tech entrepreneur from Silicon Valley who specifically wanted the infamous divorce car. Madison watched the auction online with Sarah, Tyler, and Emma. That's more than our house costs, Emma said, amazed. It's obscene, Tyler added, but he was smiling. Can we use some for my college fund? Already done, Madison told him. Both your funds are fully restored, plus interest. The relief on her children's faces was worth every legal battle, every humiliation, every sleepless night. Marcus called with more good news. Jackson's attempt to hide assets in offshore accounts has been discovered. The forensic accountants found another $4 million in the Caymans. $4 million, Madison repeated numbly. While she'd been choosing between groceries and gas, Jackson had millions hidden away. It gets better, or worse, depending on perspective. The IRS is now involved. Tax evasion charges are likely. Madison felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. How did I not see this? 17 years, Marcus. How did I not know who he really was? Because he was careful. Because you trusted him. Because that's what marriages are supposed to be built on. Don't blame yourself for his deception. But she did blame herself, at least partly, for the willful blindness, the ignored red flags, the times she'd chosen comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. A week later, she received an unexpected call. Madison, it's Patricia Morrison. Patricia was married to one of Jackson's business partners, a woman Madison had considered a friend before the divorce made her radioactive in their social circle. Patricia, Madison said carefully, this is a surprise. I owe you an apology. We all do. The wives, I mean. We knew about Brittany. We've known about Jackson's affairs for years. We should have told you. Madison gripped the phone tighter. Why didn't you? Fear, complicity. Our own husbands aren't saints. We maintain the fiction because breaking it meant examining our own marriages. You were the sacrifice we made to keep our illusions intact. The honesty was brutal but appreciated. And now? Now we see what you've done, how you fought back. 3 of us have filed for divorce since your hearing. You've started something, Madison. A reckoning. After the call, Madison sat in her small rental house processing. She'd become something she never intended. An inspiration, a symbol, a catalyst for other women trapped in gilded cages. Sarah arrived with news from social media. Brittany's lost 300,000 followers. Her fitness brand launch failed. The investor money, Jackson's money, has been frozen by the court. I don't want to hear about her anymore, Madison said. She's as much a victim as anyone. Young, manipulated, discarded. If Jackson hadn't been married, she'd just be another 20-something who dated a narcissist with money. Sarah studied her. You're defending her? I'm recognizing her. I was her once, just older and with a marriage certificate. Jackson doesn't see women as people, just accessories with different functions. Wife, mistress, mother to his children. We're interchangeable to him. That evening, Madison attended Tyler's lacrosse game, the first since he'd rejoined the team. She sat in the bleachers alone, other parents giving her wide berth. Her story was too public, too raw, too threatening to their own carefully maintained facades. Then someone sat beside her, another mother, Lisa Carter, whom Madison barely knew. My husband travels constantly for work, Lisa said without preamble. Last month I found charges for a hotel in Denver. He was supposed to be in Dallas. She watched the game, not looking at Madison. How did you know it was time to stop pretending? Madison thought carefully. When the cost of maintaining the lie became higher than the price of exposing the truth. When my children were suffering for his choices. When I realized I was teaching my daughter that this was what marriage looked like. Lisa nodded, still watching the field. My daughter's the same age as Emma. They sat in companionable silence, 2 women on different points of the same journey. By the end of the game, 3 other mothers had joined in them, each with their own questions, their own fears, their own dawning recognition. Madison had become something she never expected, a lighthouse for women navigating similar storms. Marcus called the next morning with the Jackson's latest offer. Full settlement. You get the house, primary custody, half of all disclosed assets, plus the trust funds. He keeps the company and drops all counterclaims. What's the catch? Non-disclosure agreement. You can't discuss the marriage, the divorce, or him publicly, ever. No. Madison, this is a good offer. Better than good. It's everything we wanted. It's silence. He wants to buy my silence so he can rebuild his image, find another victim, repeat the pattern. No. The trial will be brutal. He'll drag you through mud. Let him. The truth is my armor now. She was proven right 2 weeks later when Jackson's team leaked photos from early in their marriage. Madison at 25, working as a paralegal, at office parties, in bikinis on vacation. The headlines were predictable. Gold digger's long con, and from secretary to millionaire, Madison's calculated rise. Tyler came home from school furious. They're lying about you online. People lie when the truth doesn't serve them, Madison told him. Your father needs me to be a villain so he can be a victim. That's his story, not ours. Emma was in tears. Kids at school are saying horrible things. Madison held her daughter. What do you believe? That Dad's a jerk and you're amazing. Then that's all that matters. Sarah arrived with unexpected allies. Three of Jackson's former employees wanted to testify about his business practices, his treatment of female staff, the culture of misogyny he fostered. They're risking their careers, Sarah explained, but they say watching you fight inspired them. The trial date approached like a gathering storm. Madison prepared with Marcus, reviewing documents, practicing testimony, steeling herself for character assassination. Then Jackson made his final mistake. He appeared on a business podcast discussing resilience in the face of personal challenges. He painted himself as a victim of a vindictive ex-wife, a good man destroyed by a woman's greed. He mentioned the children, claiming Madison was poisoning them against him. Madison watched the interview once, then called Marcus. He violated the court order about discussing the children publicly. File the motion. The violation was clear, the consequences severe. Judge Ross was furious. Mr. Hayes, you were explicitly ordered not to discuss your minor children in public forums. You've not only violated this order, but used them as props in your PR campaign. Jackson's lawyer tried to argue semantics, but the damage was done. I'm modifying the custody arrangement, Judge Ross announced. Sole legal and physical custody to Mrs. Hayes. Mr. Hayes will have supervised visitation pending completion of family counseling. Jackson exploded. You can't take my children? You gave them away, the judge replied coldly, the moment you prioritized your image over their well-being. Outside the courthouse, Madison felt no victory, only relief. Her children were protected. Their futures were secure. The rest was just money and property, things that could be replaced. A young woman approached her, nervous and determined. Mrs. Hayes, I'm Rebecca. I was Jackson's assistant 3 years ago. He promised me career advancement if I... She stopped, gathering courage. I have recordings, emails, evidence of what he does to women in his company. Madison looked at this young woman, seeing herself, seeing Brittany, seeing all the women Jackson had consumed and discarded. Give them to the district attorney, Madison said. It's time everyone knew exactly who Jackson Hayes really is. The criminal investigation began within days. The empire Jackson had built on exploitation started its final collapse. But Madison didn't watch. She had a future to build, children to raise, a life to live. The phoenix had risen. The ashes could scatter where they may. This trial began on a Tuesday morning that felt like the edge of a cliff. Madison sat between Marcus and Sarah, watching the courtroom fill with reporters, Nashville society fixtures, and curious strangers drawn to the spectacle of wealth destroying itself. Jackson entered with an entourage of lawyers, his appearance carefully managed. New suit, fresh haircut, the picture of wrong prosperity. But Madison saw the tells, the twitch in his jaw, the way he avoided eye contact, the slight tremor in his hands as he shuffled papers. 3 months of investigations had revealed the depth of Jackson's deceptions. The FBI had joined the IRS in pursuing criminal charges. 23 women had come forward with allegations ranging from sexual harassment to fraud. Hayes Development's stock had crashed. The board had officially terminated him. But today was about their divorce, the division of a life built on lies. Jackson's attorney, Cromwell, came out swinging. He painted Madison as a calculating woman who had trapped a successful man, lived off his earnings, and then orchestrated his downfall out of spite. Mrs. Hayes never contributed financially to the marriage, Cromwell stated. She was a homemaker by choice, content to spend Mr. Hayes's money while producing nothing of value herself. Madison felt Tyler's words echo. Don't let them make you nothing. She kept her face neutral, taking notes as if Cromwell's words were academic rather than personal attacks. Marcus's opening was surgical. We'll demonstrate that Madison Hayes was not just a wife, but an uncredited architect of Hayes Development. That she sacrificed her career, her earning potential, and her identity for a man who repaid that sacrifice with systematic betrayal, financial abuse, and attempted destruction. The first witness was Jackson's former CFO, Robert Daniels. Mrs. Hayes reviewed every major contract in the company's first 5 years, Daniels testified. Her legal expertise saved us from 3 potentially catastrophic deals. Jackson used to joke that she was his secret weapon. Cromwell tried to dismiss this. Reviewing documents isn't building a company. No, Daniels agreed, but preventing bankruptcy is. The Meridian deal in 2011 would have destroyed Hayes' development if Mrs. Hayes hadn't caught the liability clause. Jackson was ready to sign. She stopped him. More witnesses followed. The nanny who testified about Madison managing Jackson's business dinners, networking with investors' wives, securing deals through relationship building, Jackson claimed as his own victories. The accountant who confirmed Madison had managed all personal and most business finances until Jackson locked her out of the accounts. Then came Rebecca, Jackson's former assistant. Her testimony was devastating. He told me successful men deserve beautiful women around them, she said, voice shaking but determined. That wives were for stability, but mistresses were for inspiration. He said Mrs. Hayes had served her purpose, given him children and social credibility, but she was aging out of relevance. Objection, Cromwell shouted. Hearsay and irrelevant. It speaks to Mr. Hayes' state of mind regarding marital assets, Judge Ross ruled. I'll allow it, Rebecca continued. He said the art of business was making people think they were essential while keeping them replaceable. He was talking about employees, but the way he looked at me, I knew he meant everyone. Employees, mistresses, even his wife. Madison watched Jackson during this testimony. His mask was slipping, revealing the rage beneath. Sarah testified next, presenting the forensic accounting, the hidden accounts, the offshore holdings, the systematic draining of marital funds. She showed how Jackson had started moving money the same week Madison had asked about their finances. This wasn't a reaction to divorce proceedings, Sarah stated. This was a premeditated financial abandonment that began months before Mrs. Hayes discovered the affair. The most damaging testimony came from an unexpected source, Patricia Morrison, wife of Jackson's business partner. I've known the Hayes family for 12 years, Patricia said. I watched Madison disappear, not physically, but as a person. Jackson would introduce her as the wife, never by name. He'd interrupt her sentences, dismiss her opinions, make jokes about her little projects when she tried to maintain any independence. This is character assassination, Cromwell objected. It's context, Judge Ross responded. Continue, Mrs. Morrison. The worst part was watching her accept it, shrink herself to fit the space he allowed. But she never stopped being brilliant. At charity events, she'd analyze market trends better than any of the men. She predicted the 2018 housing correction 6 months before it happened. Jackson presented her analysis as his own at a board meeting. I know because my husband was there. When Madison finally took the stand, the courtroom was silent. Marcus led her through the early years, the sacrifices, the partnership that became servitude. I believed marriage was a team, Madison said. I thought my contributions, though different from Jackson's, were equally valuable. Raising our children, managing our home, supporting his business, these weren't lesser tasks. They were the foundation that allowed him to build his empire. When did you realize the marriage was over? Marcus asked. When I saw the Instagram post, not because of the affair itself, but because of the wadanet, the public celebration of betraying our family. He wasn't just leaving me. He was erasing me, replacing me like old furniture. Cromwell's cross-examination was brutal. You were jealous of a younger woman, weren't you? I was hurt by my husband's betrayal. You wanted revenge. I wanted justice. There's a difference. You've turned his children against him. Madison's composure finally cracked. I've protected our children from a father who valued his image more than their stability, who stole their college funds to buy his girlfriend a car, who would rather see them homeless than admit wrongdoing. I didn't turn them against him. His actions did. You're trying to destroy him. No, Mr. Cromwell, Jackson destroyed himself. I'm just refusing to be buried in his rubble. Jackson testified last, and it was a disaster. His story kept changing. Brittany was just a friend, then a business investment, then a regrettable mistake. The trust funds were his to manage, then jointly owned, then Madison's a responsibility to monitor. Marcus's cross-examination was ruthless. Mr. Hayes, is this your signature on the trust documents? Yes. Did you read what you signed? Of course. Then you knew about the infidelity clause. It was years ago. The language was complex. But you're a successful businessman. Surely you read contracts before signing? Jackson's temper flared. She tricked me, set me up. This whole thing is entrapment. How did Mrs. William Hayes trick you into having an affair? Did she force you to buy Miss Sterling a Lamborghini? Did she make you drain your children's college funds? Those funds were better utilized in active investments. In Miss Sterling's Instagram career, the courtroom rippled with laughter. Jackson's face turned purple. I built everything. The company, the wealth, the life she enjoyed. She contributed nothing. Marcus smiled coldly. Nothing except her career, her expertise, her connections, her children, and 17 years of her life. But you're right about one thing, Mr. Hayes. You built everything, including your own downfall. Closing arguments were formalities. The evidence was overwhelming, the truth undeniable. Jackson had systematically looted the marriage while planning his escape. Madison had simply refused to be a victim. Judge Ross's ruling was swift and severe. Mr. Hayes, your conduct in this marriage and divorce has been appalling. You've shown contempt for your vows, your family, and this court. You've hidden assets, violated orders, and attempted to financially strangle the mother of your children. She turned to Madison. Mrs. Hayes, the court recognizes your significant contributions to the marital estate and the systematic financial abuse you've endured. The division was everything Madison had hoped but never expected. The house, the beach property, 60% of all assets, full custody with Jackson getting supervised visitation, and permanent alimony that would maintain their standard of living. But the final blow was personal. Mr. Hayes, you're also ordered to pay Mrs. Hayes' legal fees and court costs, totaling $800,000. Furthermore, any future earnings from Hayes Development for the next 5 years are subject to forensic review to ensure no hidden assets remain undisclosed. Jackson stood up, shaking. This is theft. She's stealing my life's work. No, Mr. Hayes, Judge Ross said firmly. She's claiming her share of what you built together. What you're experiencing isn't theft. It's accountability. The gavel fell with finality. Outside the courthouse, Madison stood in the sunshine, feeling weightless. Not happy exactly. Too much damage had been done for simple happiness. But free. Finally, definitively free. Jackson pushed past her, hissing, "This isn't over." Madison looked at him, really looked at him, diminished, desperate, a king without a kingdom. Yes, Jackson, it is. It was over the moment you decided I was nothing. Because nothing doesn't fight back. Nothing doesn't win. And I am not, have never been, and will never be, nothing. She walked away, leaving him on the courthouse steps, surrounded by reporters shouting questions he couldn't answer. The phoenix had risen, the king had fallen. Justice, imperfect but real, had been served. 6 months after the verdict, Madison stood in the office that had once been Jackson's home sanctuary. She'd transformed it completely. Gone were the cold glass surfaces and stark modern art. In their place, warm wood furniture, law books, family photos, and most importantly, her newly framed law degree and bar certification. At 43, she'd returned to take the bar exam, passed on her first attempt. "Mom, you have a client," Emma called from downstairs. Madison descended to find Laura Bennett waiting in the living room. The woman who'd sat beside her at Tyler's lacrosse game had lost weight, gained worry lines, but her eyes held new determination. "I filed last week," Laura said. "He's doing everything Jackson did. Hidden accounts, frozen cards, threats about custody." "Then we know the playbook," Madison replied, leading her to the office. "And more importantly, we know how to beat it." Madison had started small, consulting for Marcus's firm on high-asset divorces. Word spread through Nashville's private school pickup lines and charity luncheons. Women seeking not just a lawyer, but someone who'd walked through the fire and emerged. Tyler interrupted, home from school. He was taller now, 17, with acceptance letters from 3 universities. His lacrosse scholarship would cover most expenses. The restored college fund would handle the rest. "Mom, Dad's here." Madison's stomach tightened. Jackson's supervised visits had evolved to scheduled pickups, though he rarely followed through. Jackson stood in the doorway, smaller somehow. His empire had crumbled completely after the criminal charges. Hayes' development had been sold to competitors. He was living in a two-bedroom apartment, working as a consultant, rebuilding from scratch. "Tyler's coming with me to dinner," he said, not meeting her eyes. "Ask Tyler." Father and son exchanged stilted conversation. Tyler agreed to go, protective of Emma, who'd hidden upstairs. She hadn't spoken to Jackson in 3 months. After they left, Laura asked, "How do you do it? Co-parent with someone who tried to destroy you?" "I don't co-parent with him," Madison replied. "I parallel parent. Separate lanes, minimal interaction. Focus on the children's needs. Jackson isn't capable of partnership. I finally accepted that." They worked through Laura's financial documents, Madison recognizing the patterns, the hidden accounts, the elaborate shell game designed to leave Laura with nothing. "He incorporated in Delaware," Madison noted. "Shell company buying property. Classic hidden asset move." "How did you learn all this?" "Jackson taught me. Every trick he used became a lesson in what to look for. He created his own worst enemy." Sarah arrived for their standing Friday dinner, now joined by a growing circle of divorced and divorcing women. Madison's home had become an unofficial support center. "Brittany Sterling posted again," Sarah announced, showing her phone. Madison glanced at it. Brittany, older-looking despite the filters, promoting discount beauty products. Her follower count had dwindled to thousands. The Lamborghini life had evaporated. "I feel sorry for her," Emma said, joining them. "Dad used her too." Madison hugged her daughter, proud of the empathy she'd maintained despite everything. Marcus called with news. "The FBI wants you to testify in Jackson's fraud trial." "When?" "Next month. Madison, your testimony could mean prison for him in..." She thought of Tyler, of Emma, of the father they'd lost to greed and narcissism. He made his choices. That evening, sorting through the last boxes from the garage, Madison found their wedding album. She sat on the floor, looking at her younger self, radiant in white, gazing adoringly at Jackson. That woman had believed in forever, in partnership, in the man beside her. Tyler found her there. "You okay, Mom?" "Do you hate him?" she asked. Tyler considered. "I hate what he did, who he became, maybe who he always was. But mostly I'm grateful." "Grateful?" "He showed me exactly who I don't want to be. And you showed me strength I didn't know existed. We're not broken, Mom. We're just rebuilt, differently." Emma joined them, making it a family moment on the garage floor, looking at pictures of a life that no longer existed. "I'm changing my name legally," Emma announced. "Emma Vance, like you and Tyler did." The Hayes name would end with Jackson. His legacy would be a cautionary tale, a name on fraud indictments, a Wikipedia entry about corporate malfeasance. Madison's phone buzzed. Rebecca, Jackson's former assistant, now a successful marketing director. "I wanted you to know 12 more women have come forward. Jackson's going to face serious time. But more importantly, Hayes Development's board implemented new policies. Sexual harassment training, reporting systems, protection for whistleblowers. You didn't just save yourself, Madison, you changed things." That night, Madison couldn't sleep. She walked through her house, their house, the one she'd almost lost. Every room held ghosts, but they no longer haunted. They reminded. The kitchen where she'd discovered the first lie. The office where she'd found her weapon. The living room where she'd told her children their father was leaving. The garage where Jackson had been served with divorce papers. Each space had been a battlefield. Now they were just rooms in a home where truth lived. Her phone showed a text from an unknown number. She almost deleted it, then recognized the area code. Miami. "Mrs. Hayes, this is Brittany. I know you have no reason to respond, but I wanted to apologize. I knew he was married. I thought I was special, different, worth leaving a family for. I see now I was just another transaction. You tried to warn me. I should have listened. I'm sorry for the pain I caused." Madison typed back, "I'm not Mrs. Hayes anymore. I'm Madison Vance, and you were a symptom, not the disease. I hope you find better." She meant it. Brittany had been 28, seduced by wealth and promises. Madison had been 25 when she'd met Jackson, equally dazzled, equally deceived. The only difference was the marriage certificate and 17 years of slow erosion. A new message arrived, this one from Judge Ross's clerk. The judge was recommending Madison for a legal aid position, helping women navigate divorce without resources. Your unique perspective could help countless women, the judge had written. Madison smiled. From nothing to something, from victim to advocate, from Mrs. Hayes to Madison Vance, attorney at law. She opened her laptop and began writing. Not legal briefs or divorce strategies, but something else. A book, a guide, a survival manual for women whose husbands had declared war on their existence. The first line came easily. When someone tells you you're nothing, they're really describing the space they have reserved for you in their life. Tyler and Emma found her writing at dawn, still in the garage, surrounded by the detritus of a marriage that had become evidence in multiple legal proceedings. New book? Tyler asked. New beginning, Madison corrected. For all of us. Emma picked up the wedding album, studying her parents' young faces. Were you ever really happy? Madison considered lying, maintaining some fiction for her children, but they'd seen too much truth to accept comfortable lies now. I was happy with who I thought he was, but that person never existed. It's like mourning someone who never lived. That's sad, Emma said. No, Madison replied, closing the album finally. What's sad is staying with someone who makes you disappear. What we have now, this truth, this freedom, this family we've rebuilt, this is the opposite of sad. A car pulled up outside, Tyler's teammate arriving for their morning run, Emma's friend coming for their study group. Life moving forward, not in spite of the destruction, but because of the rebuilding. Madison stood in the doorway, watching her children head into their days. The morning sun caught the dust motes in the air, tiny particles of their old life still floating, still settling into something new. 1 year later, Madison stood in the same courtroom where her marriage had officially ended. But this time, she wasn't the one on trial. Jackson sat at the defendant's table, flanked by criminal defense attorneys. The fraud charges had multiplied: tax evasion, embezzlement, wire fraud. 23 counts that could mean 20 years. Madison was the prosecution's star witness. State your name for the record. Madison Vance, formerly Madison Hayes. She caught Jackson's eye across the courtroom. He looked hollow, excavated by his own choices. The Armani suits were gone, replaced by something off the rack. His hair, once perfectly styled, had thinned and grayed. Pride had aged him more than years ever could. The prosecutor led her through the evidence methodically. The trust documents, the hidden accounts, the pattern of deception that had started long before their divorce. Ms. Vance, when did you first become aware of financial irregularities? During the divorce proceedings, I discovered my ex-husband had been moving money from our family trust for years, disguising it as investments, while actually funding personal expenses and gifts for multiple women. She testified for 3 hours, each answer another nail. She felt no satisfaction, only a weary duty to truth. Tyler and Emma waited in the hallway, refusing to watch their father's complete destruction, but wanting to support their mother. During a break, Jackson's mother approached her. Eleanor Hayes, 73, once proud of her son's success, now broken by his disgrace. I failed him, the older woman said. Raised him to believe he was special, above consequences. I see now what that created. Madison took her former mother-in-law's hands. You loved him. That's not failure. He failed himself. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Jackson didn't react as the verdict was read. He'd already lost everything that mattered to him: money, status, reputation. Prison was just geography. As they led him away, he looked back at Madison one last time. She waited for him to speak, to apologize, to rage, to do something. But he just turned away, shuffling out in handcuffs, smaller with each step. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Madison had prepared a statement. Today's verdict isn't a victory, it's an ending. My children and I are focused on our future, not his past. We wish peace for everyone affected by Jackson Hayes' actions, including Jackson himself. This chapter is closed, but one more piece of business remained. Madison drove to the storage facility where the Lamborghini had been kept since the auction. The buyer, the tech entrepreneur, had an unusual request. He wanted to meet her, to hear the story directly. David Parker, 35, had built his fortune on a platform protecting people from financial fraud. Jackson's case had become his obsession. "I don't want the car for its luxury," he explained. "I want it as a reminder, into my office as a monument to consequences." He'd brought someone with him, a young woman, nervous but determined. "This is my sister," David said. "Her ex-husband did something similar. Hid assets, left her with nothing. Your case gave her courage to fight back." Madison spent an hour with the woman, sharing resources, strategies, hope. The Lamborghini sat between them, absurd and profound, a $500,000 mistake that had brought down an empire. "I have a proposal," David said. "I want to create a foundation. Legal aid for women in financial abuse situations. I'll fund it, but I want you to run it." Madison looked at the car, then at David's sister, then at her own reflection in the Lamborghini's polished surface. She saw herself clearly. 44, stronger, scarred, but not broken. Yes. 6 months later, the Vance Foundation had helped 43 women recover hidden assets totaling $12 million. The Lamborghini sat in the lobby, no longer pink inside, restored to original black, with a placard telling its story. Tyler, now at Vanderbilt, visited with his girlfriend. "Mom, you're famous on campus. My economics professor uses Dad's case as an example of corporate malfeasance. How does that feel?" "Honestly, proud. Not of what Dad did, but of what you did about it." Mom, Emma, 16 now, was writing her college essays. She showed Madison the topic. "How watching my mother rebuild taught me that destruction can be a form of creation." Sarah arrived with champagne and news. Brittany Sterling reached out. She wants to volunteer at the foundation. Says she wants to help other women avoid her mistakes. Madison considered it. The girl who'd posed with the car, helping women recover from men who gifted cars to girls who posed. There was poetry in it. "Tell her yes. Everyone deserves redemption." Marcus called with final numbers from Jackson's criminal case. Restitution had been ordered. Jackson would be paying Madison and the other victims for the next 20 years, if he ever earned money again. "It's over," Marcus said. "Really, truly over." But Madison knew better. It would never be fully over. Jackson was Emma's father, Tyler's DNA, a ghost that would always hover at graduations, weddings, grandchildren's births. You couldn't delete 17 years, 2 children, a shared history, but you could reclaim your story. That night, Madison sat in her office writing. Her book was nearly finished, not a revenge tale or victim narrative, but a guide. Financial Empowerment Through Crisis, a Survivor's Guide. Patricia Morrison had sent a note. 11 divorces in our social circle since yours. You didn't just change your life, Madison. You changed Nashville." Madison looked around her office, the heart of her new life. Law books earned through night study while rebuilding her family. Client files of women she'd helped escape their own Jacksons. Photos of Tyler and Emma, growing into remarkable humans despite or because of their trials. On her desk sat a single document framed, the deed to their house. Not the one Jackson had tried to steal, but the new one she'd bought herself with her own money in her own name. Madison Vance, sole owner. The doorbell rang. Laura Bennett stood outside with the 3 other women, all clutching folders, all wearing the same expression Madison had once worn, desperate, defeated, but with a spark of defiance that just needed oxygen. "We heard you help women with the impossible," one said. Madison opened her door wider. "I help women discover that nothing is impossible when you refuse to be nothing." As they settled in her living room, Madison thought about the journey from that morning when she discovered the Tiffany receipt. The discoveries, the despair, the systematic destruction. The moment she'd found the trust document that would save her. The courtroom victories. Jackson's downfall. Her rise. She'd lost a husband but found herself. Lost wealth but gained worth. Lost the illusion of perfect marriage but gained the reality of authentic life. Looking at these women, beginning their own journeys through betrayal toward liberation, Madison understood her true inheritance from the divorce. Not the money or houses or even justice. It was this, the knowledge that when someone tries to reduce you to nothing, they're really revealing their own emptiness. And from that nothing, that void they create, you can build everything. The Lamborghini had been the weapon Jackson handed her. The deed to the house was the life she'd claimed, but the real victory was simpler. She'd refused to disappear. Madison Vance, formerly Hayes, attorney at law, foundation director, mother, survivor, and thriver, got to work. There were women to save, children to protect, futures to build. The king had fallen, the phoenix had risen, and her flight was just beginning. Outside, Nashville sparkled in the darkness, unaware that in a modest house in Belle Meade, a revolution was being planned, one divorce at a time, one woman at a time, one reclaimed life at a time. Jackson Hayes sat in federal prison, watching the news coverage of his ex-wife's foundation's first anniversary gala. The Lamborghini was being auctioned again, proceeds going to victims of financial abuse. He watched Madison on screen, poised, powerful, everything he'd tried to destroy. She was asked about forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't about the person who wronged you, Madison said. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of their choices. I forgive Jackson Hayes. I hope he finds peace. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean allowing someone back into your life. It means choosing your future over your past. The reporter asked one final question. Any regrets? Madison smiled, the smile of someone who'd walked through fire and discovered she was inflammable. Just one. I wish I'd realized sooner that I was never nothing. I was always everything. I just let someone convince me otherwise. The segment ended. Jackson turned off the television, sitting in the darkness of his cell, understanding finally what he'd lost. Not money or status or freedom. He'd lost Madison Vance, and she had been everything. But Madison wasn't watching television. She was at Emma's recital, Tyler beside her, Sarah on her other side, surrounded by the family she'd built from the ruins of the one that had collapsed. Emma danced, graceful and strong, a girl who'd learned that breaking didn't mean broken, that endings could be beginnings, that sometimes the greatest gift a father could give was the lesson of who not to become. As the music swelled and her daughter leaped, suspended for a moment in perfect flight, Madison understood the final truth. She hadn't survived despite Jackson's destruction. She had triumphed because of it. The deed to her new life was written in her own hand, signed with her own name, built on her own terms. And that was everything. 5 years later, Madison Vance stood before Congress, testifying about financial abuse in divorce proceedings. The Vance Foundation had helped over 3,000 women recover nearly $200 million in hidden assets. 3 states had adopted Madison's law, requiring financial transparency in divorce. Tyler, law degree fresh in hand, sat in the gallery, preparing to join his mother's practice. Emma, at Yale studying journalism, was writing a book about women who had rebuilt after betrayal. Jackson Hayes had been released on parole, working at a small accounting firm in Kansas. He'd sent one letter not asking for forgiveness, but offering it, acknowledging the pain he'd caused. Madison had read it, filed it, moved forward. Brittany Sterling ran a successful YouTube channel about financial literacy for young women, warning them about men who promised Lamborghinis but delivered destruction. The car itself sat in the Smithsonian, part of an exhibit on American greed and justice. The placard reading, "Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as destruction." This Lamborghini, meant to celebrate an affair, became the evidence that brought down a financial predator and launched a movement protecting thousands of women. But Madison wasn't thinking about the past as she spoke to Congress. She was thinking about the future, about laws that needed changing, women who needed protecting, children who needed stability. Financial abuse is domestic violence, she told the representatives. It's a weapon that leaves no bruises but destroys lives. Today, I ask you to recognize this truth and protect those who cannot protect themselves. The committee voted unanimously to advance the legislation. Walking from the Capitol, Madison's phone rang. A new client, another woman whose husband thought he could erase her with money and malice. "He says I'm nothing," the woman sobbed. Madison smiled, remembering her own journey from nothing to everything. "Then you're exactly where your victory begins. Nothing has nothing to lose and everything to gain." Let me tell you a story about a Lamborghini, a deed, and a woman who refused to disappear. The sun set over Washington, painting the sky the color of redemption. Madison Vance, who'd once been Mrs. Hayes, who'd once been nothing, walked toward her future. She had work to do.